Hello, everyone. Brother Al McClaney with this week's stewardship video. And before we go too far on part two of election prayer, let's read the disclaimer. No advice should be seen as a recommendation or endorsement, as I am not a licensed financial advisor, and this is for educational purposes only. Please do your own research, or if you have a broker or a registered investment advisor or some type of financial planner, that's what they're there for, to assist you and provide recommendations. So, just a quick review as we were going into the election. Which was November 5th, Tuesday. We now have the results. But as we were going into it, I was reminding everyone that God is sovereign. And the sovereignty of God means he either causes or allows everything that occurs. Nothing catches him off guard. He is squarely and always on his throne. And that's a good reminder, as in Bible Study Fellowship, we were studying Revelation 4, which was John being ushered in by Jesus in the spirit into the throne room of the Lord. Daniel chapter 2, verse 20 and 21 was what we talked about last week, in which it said, "Blessed be the name of God forever and ever, for wisdom and power belong to him. It is he who changes the times and the seasons. He removes kings and establishes kings. He gives wisdom to wise and greater knowledge to those who have understanding." And from that were the three attributes we talked about that only God has: omniscient, he's all knowing; omnipotent, he's all powerful; and omnipresent, he's everywhere at the same time. He is beyond time, he's infinite, right? So that adds up to the sovereignty of God. So, what, right now in the country, roughly over half the people are elated or happy with the results, and a little less than half the people are not. So no matter which side of that you're on, God is still sovereign. God is still sovereign. And sometimes that's a hard pill to discover, to swallow, depending on what side you're on, that he either caused it or allowed it. He is still sovereign. He was not surprised by the results, as some were. So we have to keep that in mind as believers. And the day of, as I said, because I have friends on both sides who were elated. They have some that are anxious, they have some that were extremely sad. But the day after, on November 6th, in U version, this was the verse of the day. And I shared this with a lot of people, um, who were friends and colleagues, et cetera. And some said they had gotten this and it was very comforting. Again, this is no matter what side you're on, but if you are feeling anxious, you're feeling fearful, you're feeling sad, remember John 14, verse 27 amplified. And again, I said this came the day after. Was the verse of the day that came that Wednesday after the election results. And it says, "Peace I leave with you. My perfect peace I give to you. Not as the world gives, do I give to you. Do not let your heart be troubled, nor let it be afraid. Let my perfect peace calm you in every circumstance and give you courage and strength for every challenge." And that's a good word, no matter what side, if you're elated or you're sad or anxious regarding the results. We have perfect peace no matter what the circumstance are as believers. So that is a internal peace that only the Holy Spirit gives us. This is not external. It does not come from the peace of, oh, this person is in office, so now I'm at peace now. I'm no longer troubled. No, 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 no. Or this person is in office now. Uh, I am troubled. I'm afraid. No, no, no. This perfect peace comes from the Lord. And this was Jesus talking, that he left us this perfect peace. So we have the indwelling of the Holy Spirit that activates that perfect peace. And it says, "My perfect peace calm you." Let it, give it permission, allow it. "My perfect peace calm you in every circumstance and give you courage and strength for every challenge." And then I'll add on to this a memory verse that I've committed to memory. 2 Timothy 1 and 7 in New Translation says, "For God has not given us a spirit of fear or timidity, but of power, love, and self-discipline." And I think this can usher in what does this have to do with stewardship? So we know that there's no need to be anxious about anything, any circumstance. We have perfect peace. This, of course, includes our finances. This includes the world, what's going on around us. And so with that, we can start looking at and say, listen, there was a great article by Anthony O'Neill, and I put his quote here, and you can go out and type Google up Anthony O'Neill, and you can even put in your financial freedom. Is it tied to politics? And you'll probably find this listing of things. He said, hey, this is what you should do. And I can tell you by his methodology, he was saying whether Trump's in the White House or if Vice President Harris had gone into the White House. Worry about your house, not the White House. Not saying don't be involved in politics, not saying don't do your civic duty of voting, but it's saying what's going on in your house is more important than the White House. Take control of your financial freedom regardless of who's in office. And he gave some practical steps. And I can tell you, he would have named these practical steps either no matter what the results are. And here it is. Build that emergency fund. You would do that if Vice President Harris was going in, or or former President Trump was going in. Pay down your debt aggressively. Doesn't matter who's in the White House. There's things we can control in our house. Invest for long-term wealth. And finally, live below your means and prioritize your values. These are staple principles that are all biblically based that you would do no matter who's in the White House, right? In fact, some quotes from him says, family, and this is Anthony O'Neill speaking. Let me tell you something. I say all the time, your financial future is in your hands, not the government's. While the people in power can influence things, they don't decide your paycheck, your savings, or your investment portfolio. Real financial freedom comes from intentional steps we take daily to create security and legacy for our families. So no matter what happens out there, we're going to stay locked into our goals. Anthony O'Neill. And then he goes further to say, family, I know times can feel uncertain, but if we're steady, if we're irrational, intentional, and we keep our eyes on our vision instead of the distractions, we'll get there. Together, let's build wealth, security, and legacy that no election can touch. Stay focused, stay faithful, and as always, take a seat at the table, your table, Anthony O'Neill. And I don't know if Anthony's biblical or not, but a lot of those principles that he's talking about are biblical principles, right? So we need to stay focused, not saying not be aware again, not saying don't be involved in politics, not saying don't do your civic duty, but let's keep the priority. God's sovereign. We follow his biblical principles as the faithful stewards. As we always say, Jesus is Lord, therefore he's the owner, but we're his faithful steward. And these are the practical principles, no matter who's in the White House, that we be doing. Build that emergency fund, pay down debt aggressively, invest for long-term wealth, live below our means, and prioritize our values. And we prioritize those values by putting them into our spending plan, right? That's how we can tell what the things are important to us. All right, let's go ahead and change gears. Let's look at this week's um, earnings reports, November 11th, the week of November 11th. Again, hey, even with election results in, earnings are still going to come in. Sales are still going on. And we've got some known companies that are reporting like Shopify, Kava. Kava is again, this is not a recommendation. See right down at the bottom of the screen, not a recommendation, but these are some shares that I own, my wife owns, right? And it's been doing well, very well. So I can't wait, of course, to hear what the earnings, hopefully they blow it out of water and those earnings continue to go up. So you got Home Depot, Kava, Spotify, Walt Disney is reporting this week. So a lot of major companies, and one not so major was Kava, but I have a vested interest because we've got shares in that company, individual shares, but a lot of companies that are reporting this week. So to continue on in that theme of uh, being aware who's in the White House, but don't necessarily, as we said, the focus is not on that. But in our house, there are certain things you could do in research. I went out and there was a US News and World Report article online, and it said 8 investments for a Trump White House. And just looking at the things that he was focused on during the campaign, there are some things that could be potential. Again, do your own research when it comes to investing. Of course, the obvious one is his media company, right? And then there's MicroStrategy. That's a crypto play. You got Tesla, and I can tell you the day I was fortunate, I did a call, option call. And if you don't know what an option call is, don't be doing it until you educate yourself. But I did a call on Tesla the day of the election. The next day, it was a huge winner, and took that trade off in one day. A great profit in that particular thing. So Tesla may be. Geo is a prison, privatized prison. And with all this talk about deportation, not saying I agree or disagree, I'm just saying this is what's being talked about. This is what the focus has been on. That could be a play. Geo, Exxon, that comes from this talk about drill, baby, drill. Intel, why? JD Vance is a tech guy, right? So there's some question as to that could be a benefit. Wells Fargo, anywhere in the financial area, because you saw the financial sector just go up tremendously. Why? Deregulation. There's some feelings that the Trump administration will be doing a lot of deregulation. And then Lockheed Martin is the defense industry because there has been some, talk about, hey, if you're NATO, if you don't pay, then we're not going to, protect you. Well, those countries are going to start possibly going in to try to buy their own defense. And Lockheed Martin is a huge defense. So these are just some of them. Find the article, read it, because it gives also some methodology and reasoning behind they're recommending these different um, companies. And here's one example. Geo is that one that's a privatized. They purchase and run facilities, right? The facilities, they don't actually run the prison, but they run the facilities that a lot of these prisons are purchasing or leasing that space. Look how it shot up. So the opening before the election was about $14 is what it was trading at. The next day, it all doubled to $25.36. That's what it closed on Friday at. That's a potential. Again, I just want to give an illustration of how much this went up. The other thing, let's take a look at is I don't put this up all the time, but I'm gonna start watching it. Is small businesses took off, right? IWM is the exchange traded fund for the Russell 2000, which are the 2000 like smallest companies that are out there. We're not talking about the really, really small ones, but it's 2000 smaller cap companies. And it's been the lagger behind the QQQ, which we always look at, and the SPY. Look how it took off. And why? Supposedly because of deregulation, that these companies could really start moving forward with deregulation. So with that, we want to still close out, and I think I'm going to start working at and looking at IWM more because I always look at QQQ and look how it took off, right? And then SPY, look how it took off. So we were in a bull market anyway. We had had some selling, but now what the market sees as the uncertainty being lifted, because it now knows who's going to be in the White House, knows the Senate will be Republican, and at this point it looks like Republicans will hold on to the House. So it's not a matter of which side of the political parties you're on. It's the fact that now the uncertainty has been removed and the market knows. So there's a possibility that it continues to go up. We'll see. There's still issues out there. Inflation. If Trump puts tariffs on, that is still going to be inflationary. If there's the mass deportation, that could be inflationary. There's still the huge deficits out there. And if you look at the bond market, and we looked at that last week, the bond market is still not happy. It's been selling off. So the only person who knows is the Lord, right? The sovereign Lord knows. But what we can do is just, the best we can to see, are there some areas that can help us as investors or even businesses, your startup that may be in that particular area that looks like it's going to do well under this administration. Those are things we can do and look at. So don't want to forget, I'm a veteran to have all to wish all my other fellow veterans happy Veterans Day on November 11th. The I think the bond market's closed, but the stock market is actually open still on November 11th. But the all the federal agencies and the banks, of course, would be closed. But November 11th, happy Veterans Day for all of my fellow veterans. And with that, here are all the ways, once again, to like and subscribe. You can get a email and put on distribution list. So different ways that you can make sure that you're getting this video when it comes out. So with that, until next week, remember, God is sovereign. He's given us his perfect peace. So it doesn't matter what the circumstances or anything that's going on out there in the world. We have internal the promise of perfect peace that the Lord Jesus himself has given us, and that's activated through the Holy Spirit, right? And we know God is sovereign. Nothing catches him by surprise. He either caused it or allowed it to happen. And I hope that's words of comfort for you, whichever side of the political spectrum you're on. And until now, remember, as we said, Jesus is Lord. He's the owner, but we are his faithful stewards following his principles that we learn through his word. See you next week.